Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we take a look at the latest Bendy themed game from Joey Drew Studios, Boris and the Dark Survival. This top-down horror game sees the hapless wolf Boris navigating the seemingly abandoned halls of Joey Drew Studios as he is tasked with collecting key items for his safe house. However, while things seem pretty quiet, the ink demon Bendy is never far from sight, and much of the game is spent fleeing from him and hiding in the little miracle stations scattered throughout these maze-like environments. In order to outrun Bendy, we require a constant supply of Boris's favourite food, bacon soup, which is available from these handy vending machines. And that's the basic gameplay loop of this new game. It's simple, easy to pick up, and doesn't have too much story to it. With that said, this is still a Bendy game, and so there's a host of collectibles, secrets, Easter eggs, and of course audio logs to discover.
So where's this Mr. Connor get on telling me what to do?
In today's video, we take a look at all of these things as we return to the studio as Boris, revealing its final hidden mysteries. To kick off this video, let's take a look at all the secret collectibles found throughout the game. These are special items located inside lockers which Boris must first hack to access. The first collectibles on today's rundown are these records, playable after collection on the record player within Boris's hideout. They are free to collect as we explore the depths of the studio, but 4 songs in total. The song names are Thinking of You Again, Swinging in Hellfire Follies, Sammy Doodle's Number 9, and A Safe Place. Check out these brief clips from each. Full versions of these tracks and others can be found over on the official Joey Drew Studios YouTube channel. You'll also notice after playing a song, Boris begins to dance hypnotically to the beat. He'll do this for as long as you leave him without touching the controller, and it's pretty adorable. Next up, Boris's favourite bone. Again found randomly in a locker, this seems to be the bone Henry finds in Boris's room during chapter 3, a bone he can give to the wolf if the player so desires. Doing so caused Boris to wander the studio with a big bone between his gnashers, and in similar fashion we see this replicated upon unlocking said bone in Dark Survival. When hopping into a new play session, the bone now appears on the table within the safe house, so it's up to you whether you want to explore with this item or not. It's gotta make drinking that bacon soup hard though, right? The next of these collectibles are pieces of a missing collage. You'll notice at the far side of Boris's safe house there is a large blank wall with 7 possible scrap pages to find for it. These make up the creepy collage first discovered by Henry when he awakes inside the safe house at the beginning of Bendy and the Ink Machine chapter 3. There's no quick way to locate these pages, just be sure to hack every locker you encounter and eventually the pages will be yours. Add these to the safe house wall, and when all 7 are in place, a prompt button allows us to access the ending of the game. Check it out. This ending doesn't seem to tell us too much that we didn't already know, rather it confirms our suspicions about certain things we speculated over during Bendy and the Ink Machine. For example, we always assumed the collage in Boris's den was a representation of the human soul trapped within the body of a cartoon wolf, a fragmented being desperately fighting for control over its new body with the cartoon host. This is represented in this image as we see parts of a terrified human among the wolfy body. It was also something elaborated on in the book Dreams Come to Life. In fact, I have already written a detailed theory about this, and so we'll link it at the end of this video. From the evidence on show, we can narrow down the person trapped inside Boris to one of two people, Wally Franks or Buddy Lewick. At this time, it seems most likely it is Buddy, the central protagonist of Dreams Come to Life, who is trapped inside this Boris, as he was transformed into a Boris clone by Joey Drew after his death to the Ink Demon at the end of the book. We also see direct references to Buddy via the Seeing Eye tool, and Henry even calls him Buddy directly.
Hey buddy, using that lever handle around?
Although this could easily just be an affectionate nickname. While many argue that this Boris couldn't possibly be Wally as he escaped the studio and wrote to Joey Drew years later, and that's certainly true, we must also remember that Thomas Connor and Alison Pendle also left the studio, but like Henry, were lured back years later to become Tom Boris and Alison Angel respectively, or at least that's where the evidence points. Wally Franks has many traits very close to this version of Boris. The way he behaves, such as his timid yet mischievous nature, and the fact he has the skills of a handyman, which was of course Wally's job. But again, this ending doesn't give us much to work with. It simply tells us that Boris finally lost the last of his humanity after completing this collage, his final way of communicating who he used to be with the world. However, one final point of interest is the sound of the door closing, which comes after the cutscene. Take a listen again. Now listen to the noise at the beginning of Bendy Chapter 1 as Henry enters the studio. So you see, this noise confirms a point on our timeline for this new game. Boris and the Dark Survival indeed is a prequel to the story being told during Henry's journey through the studio. We are building up the safe house Boris would soon bring Henry to after rescuing him at the end of the game's second chapter. Of course, there is yet more story information for us to discover in this new game, and this comes in the form of audio logs scattered throughout the environment. There seem to be 4 to find, and the first comes from Sammy's musical assistant, lyricist Jack Fain.
A person shouldn't live for their coffee break, but you try having Sammy songs playing all day in your head, over and over and over, like a parade, your front row to the bass drum solo. So I'm just here for the coffee and the quiet. Hey, coffee and quiet, that wouldn't be a bad song lyric. Where's my pencil?
There's not too much to say about this one. We know Jack Fain found Sammy a little intense and overbearing at times, opting to construct a makeshift office in the stinky sewer system beneath the infirmary so he could get some much needed peace and quiet. This new audio log simply elaborates on his day-to-day frustration. Next up, we have Norman Polk.
I can't help but feel that I'm not the only one in my projection booth sometimes. It can get mighty dark some nights. But here's the part that really makes my mind swim. Every night, just as I'm picking up my coat, there's a deep groan rising up from the floor. One of these days, I'm gonna get my light and go see what's causing all the fuss below me.
This one is a little more interesting, especially if you've read the Bendy novel Dreams Come to Life. In this book, we discover Bendy was locked in a room within the infirmary, where he had been kept trapped and out of sight of Joey's investors.
Whatever that green thing was I saw wandering around your office, you better keep it locked up tight.
Buddy accidentally releases the Ink Demon, and this is later explained by Norman Polk, who seems to know about everything going on at the studio. So it seems, as per this recording, that Norman did indeed investigate the noise and found Bendy or some other inky abomination trapped beneath his projection booth. Finally, we have an audio log from Thomas Connor and Wally Franks.
So here's my beef with this whole jet thing. I went to school, yeah, that's right, me, star student of Brickmore High. So where's this Mr. Connor get on telling me what to do? These college boys, they can tell you what's wrong, but if you try to fix it on them, they're out of here.
If there's one loose bolt around here, we're gonna have a whole mess of trouble. And wouldn't you know it, that Wally guy is one loose bolt. He keeps the floors clean, he says. He didn't sign on for no science project. All I know is someone needs to keep these pipes maintained. And it can't be a slacker.
These two recordings essentially elaborate on the rift between Thomas Connor and Wally Franks. We saw a previous altercation between these two handymen during a recording located in Bendy Chapter 3. Thomas Connor seemingly a more hard-working and educated man, albeit with a short temper, and Wally Franks the very definition of a slacker. They butted heads over and over due to drastically different backgrounds and work ethic. However, it is interesting to note that Wally seemed to be privy to some of the scientific experiments we know Connor and the Gent Company were involved with, such as the ink machine being constructed for Joey Drew, meaning he may have also known about the human sacrifices at some point in time. Another reason why Joey would have wished to lure him back to the studio to cover up his sordid past. Wally Franks may have known a little too much and be viewed as a loose end, further evidence that perhaps he is the Boris now roaming these halls after all. As we explore these maze-like environments, you will notice certain rooms contain holes in the wall with the words "look" beside them. These holes give us a glimpse into a secret room, a room which doesn't look too dissimilar to the one Sammy held Henry hostage in during the sacrifice sequence of Bendy Chapter 2. There are a range of different Easter eggs contained within these holes. They are randomly generated, with some being harder to find than others. Some feature texts such as "surrender to the machine," while one even jump scares the player with a Bendy cutout. The rarest of these secrets seems to be this one, in which the player comes face to face with the Meatley himself, who is, if you didn't know, one of Bendy's creators and a lead designer on this game. His cutouts can be found throughout Bendy and the Ink Machine, so it's nice to see him pop up here too. Occasionally, Boris will stumble across these inky hearts, suspiciously left on dinner plates for him to collect. Picking up said heart results in this terrifying audio. This sound is of course the Projectionist, a creepy character who guarded hearts in Bendy Chapter 3 and 4. The fact we hear this sound effect play when we pick up these hearts may mean he is tied to them in some way. And this is something I didn't previously consider, but it makes sense considering whenever we see the Projectionist in Bendy and the Ink Machine, these hearts show up as well. Currently, it is unclear if these hearts have any further use beyond their Projectionist-themed jump scare. Finally, we have the mystery box. How do you access the contents of this box? Currently, it is unknown. Perhaps we have to find a very rare key in one of the lockers, perhaps by collecting enough of those hearts during a single run, or perhaps by surviving a certain number of days. There are no clues or hints given at this time, and it may be a repeat of the trapdoor secret from Bendy and the Ink Machine, which required a very specific and difficult set of criteria to be met in order to gain access. It is something left for the Bendy community to solve, so get cracking. I'll do my best to search for any clues and report back when new information comes to light. For now, we will have to leave this final mystery unsolved. And that concludes this look at the secrets and story information from Boris and the Dark Survival. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to give it a like, leave me a comment down below, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.